Hello, hello, friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face. I guess that's the official intro now. Y'all seem to like it. It's stuck. It's stuck. Whatever. I'm fine with it. Anywho, wanted to get the intro filmed so I can get editing the rest of the video because those that might not have been aware, I was sick for about a week. Good old fashioned head cold / potentially the Rona. Who knows? It's the times we live in. Anyway, I sound worse than I feel. I'm feeling great. Life is good. And yeah, I have a bunch of videos coming. So just subscribe if you haven't. Stay tuned. All the fun things. Tiny bit of housekeeping while I'm thinking of it, because people do keep emailing me and asking on my website. It's a work in progress. It's a work in progress. There's a previous video back in the fall, my old website, when things crashed and everything went wrong. I set up a whole new website, amyr.com, and yeah, right now it's just holding my blog posts. I will get that edited and add an actual subscription button to that. One thing at a time. It's just, I don't have enough hours in the day. Anyway, but for those that have been messaging me about it and asking, another way to stay updated, because YouTube is ridiculous most of the time, you can always subscribe, of course. The button's below. There's a little bell icon. You can click that. You're supposed to get notified when new videos go up, but again, I am at the mercy of the robot overlords, aka the algorithms, and it doesn't happen. But the other thing I do always when I post something new is I post it on my Facebook page and my Instagram, and those are linked always in the description box below the video. So if you follow me on those, yeah, every time I post a new project, new video, they go up on my Instagram and my Facebook page. And I think that's it. Yeah, today's post and video is actually part of an Instagram hop for Pretty Pink Posh. I did the YouTube hop last week, and I'll link to that video at the end of this one, because I also did a little release and review as part of that video and walked through the whole June release from Pretty Pink Posh. So if you missed that, you can check it out. I'll have it linked at the end. And then I did a video for today's, because why not? And that will be also, of course, on my Instagram. So if you want to head over there and hop along, because there's multiple days of Instagram hops and giveaways and all that fun stuff. So again, that'll be linked below. And then just stay tuned and I will show you guys the card I made. So if you saw my previous Pretty Pink Posh June video, I did a couple of sort of monochromatic cards in a citrus theme using greens and yellows. And I decided for this card, I wanted to add some pink. So I was thinking either blood oranges or grapefruit. Either one works, they're citrus and they have some pink and it's just pretty. So I started with the layered citrus stencil set. I love Pretty Pink Posh. The layered stencil sets, again, done many videos using so many of them. They're chef's kiss. They line up so easily and they're fun. So I have my card front, which is an A2 panel of smooth white cardstock. And then I have what will be the inside of my card base, where I took some Post-it tape and just applied it to right where the score line is to mask off that portion of the inside of the card. And for the first layer of the stencil, I used Simon's Pawsitively saturated ink in watermelon, and I'm working with my little Picket Fence Studios paper pouncers. And on the card front, I did the inking full strength with the paper pouncer, and then without re-inking anything, I moved the stencil over to the inside of the card and just kind of pulled up whatever was left on the stencil and used the pouncer to apply that. So I get a little bit of a lighter version, which just makes it easier when it comes time to write on the inside of the card. It's a little bit paler, it'll make the writing more legible. And then for the second layer, which is like the rinds, I started with yellow, which was SUNBEAM ink, and I applied it kind of haphazardly, not all over, and then it immediately moved the stencil over, used what was left over on the pouncer and on the stencil on the inside of the card, put that stencil back on the card front, and then I switched to orange ink, which was SHERBET ink, and kind of let them like mix together so I get that orangey, yellowy look. And did the same thing, put it on the inside and just used whatever was left over. And then the final little stencil in the set is the little like burst of the citrus. So again, just use the watermelon ink. Same process. So got the inside stencil, got my card front stenciled. A person could always leave it here, but of course I'm going to add splatter. So I just took those 3 same inks and I just pressed the ink pads right onto my little glass work surface here. And then I'm going to add some water to each of these. And once I've got that added, off screen, I've also got a jar of just water that I'll clean my brush in between. So I just take a paintbrush, swirl it in that ink and water, and I'm just splattering it on the background. Just simple. It just gives it that little extra something. So between each color, I just quickly, wiped off my brush, swirled it in the water again, and then swirled it in the next color with the water and the ink, and splatter that onto the background. And then I'm going to let that dry, and then I will end up die cutting that with the largest of the Pretty Pink Posh WONKY stitched rectangle wafer dies, which I will get to in a bit. So then for my main images, I was using the little citrus stamp set. I'd used the sentiments on the previous cards, but I didn't use the images. So I stamped the images with Simon Says Stamps Intense black ink onto another piece of smooth white cardstock. And this is a alcohol marker friendly ink. And this is just the cardstock I like using with alcohol markers. So I just used acrylic blocks to stamp everything because I was stamping it all multiple times because I wanted to have a little cluster of them on the front and then have a few extras for the inside. So I stamped everything multiple times, and then I'm doing all of my coloring with Copic markers, and I have the lids on screen for each color I used. And right this moment, this is real time. This is, this is the speed at which I normally color. And then I'm going to super speed this up in editing. This is like 800% faster than I actually color. These didn't take that long to color. However, it just makes my videos way too long. And it fries my videos, man. Not my videos, it fries my laptop and all my equipment and stuff sometimes trying to render full strength footage. Anyway, super sped it up. So I did my typical, though, what I normally do, whether I'm using Copic markers or my Spectrum Noir tri-blends. I go darkest to lightest. I went with Copics this time because I had more colors that went easily with the color scheme I was going in the inks, whereas the Spectrum Noir tri-blends, I would have had to fiddle a little bit more to get the right shades, and I was just no, it was just easier with Copics. So did my darkest to lightest. It's just my habit go-to. I find it easier to blend, and it literally does just go faster for me. But if you are newer to alcohol marker coloring, generally, rule of thumb is to go lightest to darkest. It does give you a lot more control over where you're coloring and what you're doing, because it's a lot easier to add deeper colors than it is to try and take away, if that makes sense. But these are pretty simple to color in. I did, pink shades for the centers of the little citrus, and then I did again oranges and yellows for the actual rind, and then greens for the leaves. And then I also took darker shades and then just did dotting. It adds texture. I really like the look of it. And this is also a nice little trick to do too if you're not super happy with your blends, is to just add a bunch of dots, because it just, again, it adds texture, and it kind of takes away from, it's if your blend isn't perfect, add some texture. You're good to go. So I did that with all of the little elements. And then my final bit of texture is my jelly roll gel pen. This is the 10. This is the widest gel pen. And I mentioned this in a recent video. If you struggle with your white gel pens, biggest thing you need to do is just use it consistently. If it sits for too long, like, months on end, and it doesn't get used, it starts to dry up, especially in the ballpoint tip. One way to kind of get it going again is a lot of times I'll kind of warm it up between my fingers and like literally try to like draw on like my hands or on my fingers. That sometimes will work. Same with like scribbling on scrap paper, but the warmth of your hands, usually I can usually get it working again. And if that doesn't work, same with scribbling, etc., it's done for. So if you use your gel pens consistently, you can use them right up without them drying out. So anyway, did all of that. I die cut all those little images with their coordinating wafer dies. And then for my like kind of main sentiment, I'm using the Smile hot foil plate from this new release. And I'm using matte white. I think that's what it's called. Where'd it go? Here it is. It's opaque white glimmer foil, which I purchased this forever ago, whenever it came out. I don't even remember. It's been sitting with all my foils forever. There's white and black. And I used the white and some green cardstock. And my like kind of go-to that just works for me is I tape the foil down with a little bit of Spellbinders tape. And then I tape the plate to the foil. So the pretty side of the foil faces up. And the nice side of the plate faces the foil. Tape them together. Use my Glimmer hot foil machine. Let everything heat up. Then I ran it through my Platinum 6 die cut machine to apply the pressure. And it foiled like a dream. And yeah, having this foil, like not only is it opaque, but it's matte. It's interesting. I was like, I'm going to have to play with this some more. Especially like how nicely it foiled on colored cardstock. I'm thinking about like some other foil plates. So anyway, back to the card. I die cut that with the Smile Shadow wafer die. And if you don't want to get into like hot foiling at all, the Smile Shadow wafer die also comes with the word. So you could just die cut that from white cardstock. It'll be just a slightly different look then, because the hot foiling, I don't think you can really tell on camera, but it also like presses in. So you get a bit of that letterpress look, which is also why I love hot foiling. But anyway, I die cut scraps that green cardstock with that outline, couple more, stack them together as is tradition to give it dimension. And I use my craft tacky glue that I have just in a little Gina K precision bottle. And then I stamped the little sentiment from that citrus set directly onto that background that I die cut with the wonky stitch rectangle. And I didn't worry about stamping the sentiment. Like I stamped it with Versafine Clair Nocturne ink, but I wasn't worried about like if I didn't stamp it perfectly, because I was like, if it doesn't work, I'll just stamp it separately on like a piece of colored cardstock or heat emboss it, and I would adhere it on top if I did mess it up. There's always a backup plan. I get asked that sometimes. They're like, man, like, you've got confidence to stamp things, with just an acrylic block, not using a MISTI, etc. And it's like, well, one, I've been doing this a lot of years, but two, there's always a backup plan. There's always ways to cover things up, strategically placed bling, another piece of cardstock, whatever works. It's just, there's ways to fix it, So I stamped the sentiment. I adhered all my little citrus elements and the sentiment, again, with just craft tacky glue. On the inside of the card, I stamped that other little sentiment, "You're the zest," because I love me my punny sentiments. So I stamped that on the inside of the card with the same ink, and then adhered the last little stamped and colored images to the inside, and then like shifted those over a little bit while the glue was still wet. And then once that was done, I'm going to adhere the card front to the card base. My card base is just a top folding A2 white note card. And then as my final little bit of embellishment, I have the strawberry shimmer mix confetti from this release. And again, the color was just perfect. It was just meant to be. I didn't even try to match it with the ink I used, but it was like, oh, well, this is just perfect. So I put a few of those onto the card as well, and I'll adhere those into place with little dabs of craft tacky glue, and that's going to finish off this card. So like I mentioned earlier in the video, this is part of an Instagram hop, so I will have a link to my Instagram page in the description box below the video. I'll also have a link to it on my blog, which will also be linked directly below the video. I'll have that other video I mentioned that'll be on the end screen, so you can just click on that if you missed it and check that out if you want. And I'll have all the supplies I used. That'll be linked directly below as well. Thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, for the thumbs upping and the commenting and letting them robot overlords know that you guys like what you're seeing. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.